Today we are doing something a little bit different. We are gonna do a full bleach out and vivid gradient color on a male client, so let's go. What's up guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Jamie Dana and I am here to support you on your hair journey. So today's video is actually something a little bit different, and this video comes from the vault. This was a video I filmed a while ago and never got to share here on YouTube. So what we're gonna be doing today is I have my friend Jake and we are going to be bleaching out his hair, and we're gonna do a vivid kind of sunset gradient color. I'm gonna show you how I would bleach out short hair and also how I would mix up and formulate for a color like this. All right, so let's go get started. All right, so this is our before. As you guys can see, we've got, you know, a nice level 7, level 6 that we're gonna be working with. So we are going to first do a haircut, which will be linked in another YouTube video. And then we are going to go lighten this out and then do some fun colors. So let's get started. All right, so we are gonna jump on in. We are going to be mixing up our lightener, of course, and I'm gonna be doing 30 volume, but I'm gonna put Olaplex in it because obviously we want to protect his hair as much as possible. So I'm gonna do just about a scoop and a half here. I have a feeling it's gonna be quite a bit of lightener. So what we're gonna be actually doing is doing the ends of his hair first, and then we're gonna go in and do the roots and the sides. And because we did about a scoop and a half, I'm gonna do a little bit more Olaplex than I normally do, just because we mixed up a little bit more lightener. And I also usually get questions about how much Olaplex should I use, or how much does it slow down the processing. So I would definitely refer to Olaplex's website. They're gonna have all that info there. I've kind of just found what works for me. Typically for about a scoop of lightener, I will do whatever that is, a 1/16, maybe up to an 1/8, but obviously today I did a scoop and a half, so I did a little bit more than an 1/8, but obviously refer to their website to find out more information. So we are gonna go apply this to his hair. So like I mentioned, because he has so much length here in the top of his hair, I am going to apply off of the root to help lighten all of this first, and then we'll go back in and do the roots. The reason why we wanna do that is if we just go straight in, apply it to the roots, and then apply it to the ends like we normally would with a base color or something like that, what's gonna happen is the roots are gonna process really quickly, and the ends are gonna take a long time to pull up, so they're gonna be really warm. And even though with this color palette we're working with warmth, we wanna make sure that when it rinses out, he doesn't have like white, beautiful roots and then this like baby chick color yellow on the end. So this is just the best way to tackle that. It makes it a little bit easier too, so that it's not burning his scalp or sitting on his scalp too long. Just a better way to do it. So I kind of sectioned out his hair. He's got a lot of hair and it's got a lot of movement in it. So I'm just gonna go through and kind of, you can see, just kind of apply it in right off the ends here. And I personally love this little tail comb brush from Framar because it allows me to section and not have to use a tail comb or anything like that. So I feel like it keeps it a little bit cleaner. So what I'm doing is just going through, making sure that I'm saturating really well. I'm just gonna kind of tackle some of these longer sections. We probably won't really get into the sides until we do that when we go through and do the roots. But yeah, so that's what we're gonna do. And eventually, you know, as we rinse it out, he might still have a little bit of warmth on the ends, and we can go back in and do a little lightening on the ends. It's not the end of the world, but this just makes it a little bit more foolproof that we will have more of an even lift all throughout.
Okay, so now that I have fully applied it to the top, I'm gonna check before I start to apply it to the roots. So what we're gonna be looking for here is I'm gonna kind of remove some of that lightener so I can actually see what the hair has lifted up to. And ideally with his natural level, we want it to be around a level 8, almost into a level 9. Now you can see that there definitely is some warmth in there still, so it still needs to process, but we don't wanna go in if it's too dark to the roots, because otherwise it's gonna be be really hard to have it lift consistently. So that feels pretty good to me. So I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna start here in the back section. Typically in the back, it's where it's darker and more coarse anyways. So we'll start here. Now with short hair like this, you wanna make sure that you're really getting in there and saturating. So you're gonna see that I'm taking my brush and just going through and taking these tiny, tiny sections and making sure to really saturate in there with my product. So I'm even like getting more lightener than I would have if it was color, just because lightener does not spread the same way that color does. So I'm going in and using my tail comb to lift up that hair to make sure that there's no hollow spots. Now, one thing to keep in mind, if you are using a brush like this that has the tail comb end, just be really gentle as you are going across the scalp, especially if lightener has been sitting on the scalp for a little while. The scalp could be more sensitive, so just be gentle as you're, kind of getting in there. But as you can see, like there was another hollow spot. So I'm just making sure to get all of these spots in there and getting them very, very saturated, and double checking and cross checking each section, because the worst thing would be is if you have like a spot in there that didn't get covered and then you've got warmth in there, or you've got like an orange spot. That's going to be a lot harder to color correct at the bowl, and obviously we don't want that. So I'm just cross checking here, throwing it in there and saturating fully as we work our way up through this back section onto the hairline and through the top here. Okay, so we're working forward through this section now, and as you can see, I'm taking really fine sections. I'm doing about 1/4 of an inch thick sections. You wouldn't want to do anything too much thicker than this, just because you want to make sure that you're getting that product fully saturated in at the root. And the cool thing about a service like this is as you're going back through and applying it on the root, you can also see if there's any spots in the hair where maybe you had some hollow spots that didn't get fully covered, or if the product is starting to dry out or stop working, so you can go back in and kind of reapply. Also keep in mind too that as I'm working through this section, I'm being really gentle with his scalp, with the tail comb, and I'm being gentle as I pull through the hair, because this has been processing for a little bit, and you just want to be gentle. So I'm going to finish up this section and we're going to let him process till it lifts up to the color that we want. Most satisfying part. All right, so I just wanted to show you before we rinsed him what it looks like. It's obviously still gonna be a little bit warm, but that's fine. I actually want a little bit of warmth. I don't wanna lift him to like a level 9 and make it all beautiful and pearly, because we're gonna use that warmth in our canvas. Now, if we were doing something like a lavender or something lighter, then I might be a little bit more wanting to lift it. Or even if we were doing like a neon, then I would wanna lift it maybe just a smidge, teeny tiny bit lighter, but I actually feel really good about this. So you can see we're gonna have a little bit of warmth still in there. That's okay. We're gonna work with that. So we're gonna head on over to the shampoo bowl and rinse it out. Come on over. All right, so we are getting ready to rinse him, but I did want to show you actually just what we've lifted to. So you guys can kind of see here, it might be a little hard to tell on camera, but we've got a nice, like almost level 9 going on here. Now, we do have a little bit of warmth in some areas, but I'm gonna be working with this warmth. If we were doing something like a lavender or something like very pastel, I definitely would lift it just maybe like 5-10 more minutes. But we're gonna be working with this warmth, so no need to like over process the hair or anything like that. But I did want to show you what we lifted to. And obviously when we rinse this is a blue based lightener. So when we rinse this, it is gonna be warmer, and you might freak out and be like, oh my gosh, it's so warm, but it's actually not that big of a deal, because like I said, we're working with a warm color palette. And this is actually better to not overly lift it, because if you do and you're working with a warm color palette, sometimes it just doesn't have the same, I guess, vibrancy. So we're gonna rinse it and I'll show you guys what it looks like. All right, so now we get to the fun part of finally mixing up the colors. Now, if you've been on my YouTube channel, you know that this is very different than what I normally do, but I'm really excited to create a really custom color palette. So I have picked Pulp Riot as our color of choice to use for all of this. I just really love the consistency that Pulp Riot has, and I love the durability that it has. So it lasts longer in the hair from other brands that I've tried, and I also really like, because we are doing some yellows and some lighter tones in there, I wanna make sure that it's actually going to rinse out really nicely and it's not gonna cause any problems. So I just really like Pulp Riot. If you haven't tried it yet, highly recommend it. So what I'm gonna do is I've kind of started to play around with some different color palettes. As you can see, these are kind of the different colors that I've chosen. But as you know, we're artists, we like to mix things up. So I did do a little bit of the noir with the Countess to create this like a little bit deeper color. So it's gonna look something a little bit like this. And remember, we do have a little bit more warmth in his hair than white. So this is on a white background. I do like to swatch all of my colors on paper towel, or even paper would work. But remember that this is a white canvas and we are gonna have a little bit more of a warm background, which is gonna be totally fine in this situation. So when it comes to adding black into a color, what I recommend is actually putting it in its own little bowl and just taking a little bit and scooping it out and then adding it into your formula. Because if you squirt it in there, what happens is it can sometimes turn the entire formula really, really dark or almost black. So just keep that in mind. Just slowly add that in, especially when you're using any type of black. I used to use Pravana black, but I really like the Pulp Riot black. So I'm gonna mix these up. Again, this is up to your discretion. This is when you get to kind of play with the finger paints, right? So I'm just gonna play around and work on doing kind of this fiery color palette here. Now for our yellow, you will notice I'm actually adding in a little bit of lemon. I didn't show that in the swatches earlier, but I do want it to be a little bit brighter. And I really like the lemon. I don't want it to be too light because I do want this to hold and not fade out, but I want it to be a little bit more neon. So I feel like adding in that lemon just kind of kicks it up a notch. This is satire on its own. This is with lemon. So just a teeny bit brighter. And knowing that his hair lifted a little bit more on the, deeper side, adding in that lightness will be nice. And we're done. Oh, just kidding. Okay, so this is what we lifted to. As you guys can see, it's warm, right? We didn't tone it. I didn't even really purple shampoo it. I put a little bit of blue shampoo in there just because it was at the bowl, but this is pretty much raw lift. But like I said, we're gonna use the warm tones to work with our palette. So what I'm gonna decided to do is we are actually gonna do half and half. So we're gonna kind of do a gradient going up and a gradient going up this way, but we're gonna kind of change up the colors a little bit. So one side's gonna be a little bit lighter, one side's gonna be a little bit darker. So what I'm gonna do is, we did dry his hair all the way. And the reason why that's so important is because it definitely helps the color absorb a little bit better versus doing it wet. So I'm going through and just gonna section out half and half. It doesn't need to be super precise because we're not doing like a Cruella de Vil type of situation here where it's gonna be like black on one side and white on the other. It's gonna flow together, so it's not a huge deal. But of course, we do wanna get it as precise as possible. So I'm just taking my clips, sectioning it out, and then we'll start applying. Now, one thing I did grab is a little bit of clear, or just conditioner. You could do clear as well. And I don't want to apply this everywhere, but this is helping keep all these little baby hairs out of the way. So I did just kind of grab some of that. We are going to work on the darker side first, and then we're going to get to the lighter side. All right, so you might be wondering, why are we doing such a crazy color like this? Is this something your client wanted, or is this something for something special? So actually, my client is a good friend. Fun fact, I actually did his hair when I was in beauty school, and it was my very first creative color that we ever did. In fact, I will show you a picture of it
right here or somewhere on screen. That was a good look, wasn't it?
It was.
That was a good look. Yeah, had no idea what I was doing. We basically took like chunks in foils, like bleach, and bleached it out, and then I did like black hair color in between, and then I put some purple in. Actually, it wasn't as bad. Don't know if I'd do that technique today, but that was the last time I've done his hair. Well, actually, have I done your hair? I don't think so. A cut, but not color, yeah. So very first creative color and maybe my last. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, that was the last time we did his hair. But today we're doing it for something fun because he is actually a teacher and you are what? Making your kids... So explain this a little bit more, yeah.
So my kids have jobs within my classroom, and through an online like financial education service, they have a bank account. And they earn money for doing their job in class, and they can use that money to redeem cool and exciting things. Anywhere from like bathroom passes to redeeming that I have to dye my hair the school colors. So today...
That is what we are doing. Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Honestly, I wish that I would have had a teacher like this. That's pretty darn cool. So yeah, so that's what we're doing. His kids voted, or not voted, but they are just getting to pick that you got to color your hair, right?
Yes, I put the item up on the marketplace that if they like got this amount of money and then bought this thing, that I would
color
my hair. Exactly.
All right.
And none of them individually had enough money to buy it. They had to...
Oh, they had to pool together.
They had to pool together.
Okay.
And collaborate.
Okay. So even better.
And they did.
I love it. All right, cool. So all I'm doing is I'm just kind of putting some foils over here to protect this side. Again, we're not going for like a Cruella de Vil where it's gonna have to be like perfect. It's gonna be kind of a color melt, so it's not a big deal, but it's just gonna make it a little bit easier as I'm kind of doing the other side. So got my little clips here, just kind of protecting the other side, and we're gonna start applying color. So real quick, as I went to start applying color, I realized I did not put any protection cream on him. So I'm using the Dye Defender from Framar. We love it. This is actually one of my favorite barrier protection creams out there because it's just the consistency is great. So I'm just applying that just kind of around the hairline so that we don't cause unnecessary stainage as much as possible. All right, so what I decided to do, obviously all of this hair is really short. There's no way that I could do a gradient on that kind of hair. So we're gonna do the gradient more just in the top section, which was my plan to begin with. So now I'm going in with my second color. We started with color number 1. We're doing 3 colors on both sides. So this is color number 2 that I'm going in with. So what I'm doing is I'm going to do each section individually. Now, if you've never done a color like this, your natural tendency would be like, oh, I'll just go through, do the roots, and then I'll tip out the ends. Well, what happens when you do that is you end up dragging color to this part and you're not able to do that lighter color on the ends. So what you wanna do is you literally wanna go section by section, and yes, it is tedious, but I'm gonna go section by section, do the roots, and then do the ends. And you can blend it a little bit with your fingers if you need to. Honestly, I like Pulp Riot for this reason, is that it kind of blends on its own really well. So I'm just gonna kind of go in there, but what you do want to make sure is you want to make sure that you are saturating. I think that's the biggest thing when it comes to colors like this. Another reason why I really like Pulp Riot is because it saturates really well. Just the consistency is almost like gelatinous, so it saturates really well. But just make sure that you're saturating really well. And also another really cool thing about Pulp Riot is I can lay this down and it's not gonna bleed. I'm not gonna have to worry about that. Now, if you're really concerned, you could put a foil down or some plastic or something, like plastic wrap. But yeah, so I'm just gonna keep doing this. I'm just literally gonna paint one side of the roots, just barely kind of tap, 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 almost like a little baby root shadow, right? Tap it in at the other side of the roots and then go in with our lighter color. And that's naturally going to drag down too. So you can see here, it kind of is naturally gonna drag down. So I'm going in with my lighter color and then we'll blend it in with our fingers. His hair is real short back here, so this is a little bit more challenging. But like I said, the biggest thing is just make sure that you're saturating. And I always like to keep a towel nearby to kind of wipe off my hands, keep it as clean as possible. I think anytime you're doing something like this, it's hard to keep it clean, but just try your best to keep it as
as clean as possible and keep your client clean too. So I went through and kind of cleaned up his ear a little bit, stuff like that. But yeah, so I'm gonna keep doing this to the top on this side, and then we will work our way to the other side. All right, so on this side, I didn't want to take the dark red color all the way up. You're gonna see it is still different. Like we've got that crimson color, and then I kind of went in with the red, the second color here, but I didn't want to take that all the way up the back and all the way up the side, so I'm kind of doing a gradient. Now, the way that I decided to kind of blend these two together was just kind of taking a comb and kind of combing it through just to kind of get a little bit more of a gradient in here and to make sure that it was fully saturated. So, you know, I'm kind of going in there with my brush a little bit and saturating it, but also taking that comb and just kind of saturating it. I kind of did like a little bit of a teardrop type of thing. So I think that'll look good. We'll see. If it doesn't, oh well, it's the back of his head. He can't see it, but I think it'll look good. All right, so we are ready to rinse, but before I start to rinse out the hair, what I like to do is I like to get my gloves a little bit wet, and I just go through and kind of massage in around the hairline. And this just helps kind of bring up any staining. Obviously with direct dyes, you're gonna have a little bit of staining, which is why you wanna keep it as clean as possible. But because we use the dye defender, it really does help kind of pick it up off the skin. So I just like to do this, no shampoo, nothing, just water and kind of reactivating the product a little bit. I also do this when I rinse out permanent colors too. So, you know, obviously we'll have some tools to get it off also, but this just really does help kind of reactivate it and get it off. And you'll start to see it kind of lift off a little bit. Like I can even start to see this line kind of get a little bit better. So not to say that there won't be any staining, but it does help just a little bit. And I found this with Pulp Riot, it's a little bit easier. So now what we're gonna do is we are going to rinse it with cool water, okay? So this is a big important thing. So I'm gonna rinse the dark side first, kind of keeping those ends out. I'm not too worried about it because one of the cool things about Pulp Riot, and it sounds like a video for Pulp Riot, this is not sponsored, I just love the product, but Pulp Riot pretty much rinses as clear as it can. So you're gonna see even in my hand, it's kind of hard to see here, but it is rinsing pretty clear. So that's something that's really cool is when you have lighter ends, it doesn't bleed too badly. But I still am gonna rinse the darker side first, obviously because this is a split head situation, it's a little bit easier to rinse, but yeah, I just like to do that. And basically my rule of thumb when it comes to rinsing is rinse as much as possible until it's somewhat clear. Now, of course, it might not rinse 100% clear, but we do wanna make sure that we're getting out all of the color and stuff. So rinse, sometimes I turn off the water, let it settle for a sec, and then keep rinsing. But the biggest thing is getting that hairline cleared out as much as possible. And even sometimes I'll take a little towel, get the corner wet, and just kind of clean this up too, like it's kind of getting into his face and stuff. So, especially because we had sideburns. All right, here is our after. As you guys can see, we've got a lot of fun colors in there. Oh my gosh. I think I am obsessed with the gradient colors that we did. Honestly, this orange, the nuclear from Pulp Riot, top favorite for sure. It just turns out so cool. Honestly, I think it looks even cooler in person than it does look on camera. It's neon here in person. But yeah, I am so stoked. I think it turned out so good. We're loving it, and I cannot wait to hear how his students love it too.
Well, I hope that this video was helpful for you, and in fact, I would love to know what is one thing you learned from today's YouTube video. Go ahead and let me know in the comments. It's always super helpful for me to hear what you're learning. And like I mentioned, I actually did a haircut before we did this color transformation, and if you want to see the full tutorial on how I did that, I will link it next so you can go watch it. As always, thank you so much for watching my videos, and I'll see you guys next time.